Well, blade fans, here we go with a brand new knife just out very recently from Maxace. And it is a different kind of offering in many respects from Maxace. It's called the Peregrine. It is named after the hawk that can dive at 200 miles per hour. You believe that? It is, I believe, known as the fastest animal, one of the fastest animals, 200 miles per hour. Sheesh. Put them out in Bonneville. This is an interesting knife from Maxace, and one of the first things we notice in this very nice titanium and marbled carbon fiber inlay setup is that we have so many radiused and rounded edges. There's not a sharp edge, aside from the blade, on this knife, particularly on the handle. You're going to notice too, we've got a provision there for a tritium insert. We've got about a third length backspacer of titanium clip, and it is a frame lock. And they nicely adorned it with the carbon fiber on both sides of the handle, something we don't often see. It's set up to be a front flipper, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Primarily, however, there is your thumb stud, and there is the blade of the Peregrine. What do you notice? Well, yeah, there's that line that looks like a straight hamon right across the near the edge there, but it is not. It is a demarcation between the sanmai layers of the clad surface layer and the inner hardened layer. And it is a very special steel. We've only seen previously perhaps on Rockstead knives. It is ZDP-189. I did a brief lookup on that on knife steel compositions, and there's also more out there on knife steel nerds, I believe it is. Laren Thomas, who was the creator of MagnaCut. And this steel, according to the literature from Maxace, is hardened. We're talking about this layer here, the inner core, is hardened between 64 and 66 Rockwell. It is capable of being hardened much more, so I understand. We got a beautiful classic drop point, and we have a handle very reminiscent of some other knives. And that would be Chris Reeve knives. So very reminiscent of some of the Chris Reeve styles, particularly in the handle and in that very simple drop point with a swedge on the top. This knife runs on phosphor bronze washers. Kind of a departure, I think, for Maxace, because we're used to Maxace running on bearings and being dropped shut. So there is some pretty nice engagement there of the lock bar, about roughly 20%. And that's the way you're going to be closing that knife. And they gave you a provision for a front flipper, and you might be fortunate enough to be able to flip it open, but I can't. And I don't feel bad because I saw a quick review on this knife from Jared Neve. He had the same problem, and he broke his all down, so I decided I would do the same. What I noticed is only one screw comes out. I believe it's this one pivot screw. The other one is locked in place, even though they give you, these are T10s, not T8s. Unless there's something wrong with my bit set, they are T10s because my T8s were stripping the bit. So yes, T10s, which is, I guess, a good thing because you've got more contact area, easier to loosen and tighten it. So I broke it all down, took out the phosphor bronze washers, and thought maybe I'd oil it up, smooth it up a little bit. Nope, same action. So you're not going to be interested in this knife if you like to fidget with your knives. I'm going to tell you right now, pass on it if you're a fidgeter. However, if you want a high quality knife with an edge that's probably going to last you forever and a day, I would say, just to exaggerate, it might be something you're interested in. And we're going to measure it up. I got my usual tape measure, was placed in service for something else today. I was putting up some shades. So let's get the big old honking tape measure out here. Oh yeah, big boy Stanley. Hey, Stashu. Now, that's why I used the smaller one. So we got about 8 1/4 overall. We have a blade length of like 355, I think is what they're calling it. Cutting edge of 3.5. Oh, thank God I put that away. Let's go to calipers here. And in inches, the handle is only 0.51. And the blade stock right there is 0.15. In millimeters, it is 3.8 millimeters. Weight. Well, I was going to tell you all about how there's no weight relieving, and you can see that there's no extra weight relieving there. But we forget very often that you have these stock removals for the insets, for the inlays, and that removes titanium. So let's see what we've got. We have 4.87, call it 4.88 ounces. 4.88, not terribly bad. It's a very solid feeling knife. I mean, it feels like a bar of gold or platinum in your hand there. And it kind of looks like one, a little bit like a bar of platinum. It's a beautiful bead blast on the titanium. Not too rough, very smooth, very jewelry-like. We have a hand-rubbed horizontal satin finish on the blade. You can see it there. Beautifully done. That goes right on to the ZDP-189. And someone was saying these might be soft, these clad layers here. They possibly could be a 400 series stainless. I don't know. I haven't been able to find that out. But, you know, if it is significantly softer, yes, it's going to scratch up more quickly than the hardened core. But we've got a good thickness, as you can see there by the measurements of the blade stock. Pretty nicely done point. It's fine enough for detail work, but strong enough for penetrating, piercing. It's fairly smooth. And the jimping they did give us here, unfortunately, is quite smooth and almost just decorative. That's kind of too bad. This jimping in here, I can get my thumbnail into. Again, it's a smooth operating knife, but it is not drop shut. It is not on bearings. So while we're at it, here's another Maxace called the Rock. This is on bearings, and you're going to see a very different, once we get over the detent hump, action on this. This is barely broken in. I haven't flipped this thing very much since getting it. Yeah, there we go. Kind of a soft detent on that one, actually. But that's both a flipper tab and double thumb studs. Single thumb stud only on the Peregrine. A little bigger, a little heavier knife here in the Rock. The Rock. Size-wise, you can see it's a good amount longer, a little over an inch overall. with a blade about ½ inch longer. I think it's like a 3 3/4 inch blade, not quite a 4-inch. Now here's a knife that runs on phosphor bronze washers. So I'm told, I haven't broken it down. The Kaiser Justice, whole different experience. Look at that. I think I tuned this a little bit, but look at that. I was hoping to get the Peregrine to behave like this, but it just ain't gonna. And one of the things that Jared did do was show you either a video or a still of the components of the Peregrine broken down. Getting about a ½ inch longer overall on the Kaiser Justice. Beautiful knife, beautiful budgety knife. Now this is not a budgety knife. I think these are going for somewhere in the $280 realm. Certainly you're paying a lot for that steel. You're going to pay a lot for a Rockstead out of very similar steel. I'm saying similar because I don't know that it's identical. Here is the box that the knife comes in, and one thing you notice right away is you get all the spare parts. You get the pivot screws, you get the collars, you get the pins, you get the screws, you even get hardened steel insert. Like perhaps we're going to wear it out. I don't know. And you get your requisite microfiber cloth. Pairing it up against the Reptilian, we get a very similar size knife, almost identical in length. And pairing it up with Ontario Rat 1. The Rat 1 is about ½ inch or so longer. Blade very close, a little longer in the blade. And this is not a drop shot knife either. As you can see, you could probably turn it into one with a little bit of work. So that is the Peregrine by Maxace, an entirely different sort of knife. The down points for me are certainly not the looks. The looks are wonderful, beautiful, slick, graceful, handsome, whatever you want to call that. Downside, jimping is there visibly, but is kind of a non-factor. Knife is quite smooth all the way around. I don't think you're going to slip using it. You've got a pretty good stop here. You got some good effective jimping on the lock bar, but not a fidgety knife. Is it hard to open? No, not at all. Does it drop shut? No. It's stiff. It is very stiff. You may not care. You need a good working knife. You need a handsome knife that's going to do the job and hold an edge. I think this will be the one. How about a quick cutting test before we go? Almost forgot. It comes through with a pretty decent edge. Pretty decent. I would call it pretty decent. Could you get it a little better by stropping it? Sure. And that might be the way you want to keep it sharp for the first few uses, because you may need to work a little bit with your diamond hone or what have you once it gets a little past the point where you need an edge back on it, because it's going to be a hard steel. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. I'll be back with you soon.